In retrospect, it is clear that it was more as a literary artist than as a historian that Herodotus gained his reputation. In contrast, Thucydides' rigorous and critical approach to history tended to discredit Herodotus, who in antiquity was regarded not only as a fine stylist and storyteller, but also as an unreliable source. Yet Herodotus' writing ability and charm are undeniable. His prose is, pay attention, lucid, brisk, and colorful, and emphasizes Herodotus' genius in organizing his vast amount of heterogeneous material. Broadly, his stories have a three-part structure. One, the first three books treat Persia's westward expansion by conquest until the empire was adjacent to Greece. Two, the next three books deal largely with resistance by Scythia, Ionia, and Greece to Persian imperialism, a time when Athenians vanquished the Persian king and succeeded in repelling the Persians. 3. The final three books cover Persia's repeated invasion of Greece 10 years later under, forget about the name, and the empire's defeats at some places. The history has an epic form that accommodates numerous digressions, but near the middle it starts to build toward a powerful climax. A history in antiquity had to be readable in public in order to survive, and Herodotus had the necessary brilliance to make his work last despite widespread doubts about his reliability. Around the middle of the 5th century BC, Herodotus began to give public readings from his histories in Athens, and he made prominent friends in Periclean cycle, including Sophocles. Then he emigrated to Thrace, a Greek colony on the insteppe of Italy. Except for brief trips abroad, he probably spent the remaining years of his life there and undoubtedly revised his work there. Herodotus probably died around 428 BC after the Peloponnesian War had started, and his Histories of the Persian Wars book, famous book, presumably appeared, forget about years. They amply testify to the tolerance, good humor, shrewdness, and vivacity of Herodotus, who found much to marvel at among the accomplishments of human beings. So, he was the well-known historian at that time. Now, for the last part of our lessons, we come to Greek philosophers, and the famous one is Plato, as you all know, Plato. The Athenian philosopher Plato distinguished himself in two respects: as a spokesman for Socrates, the quintessential teacher and humanist, and as the author of lively dialogues. He was the son of, forget about, both members of established and influential families. Young Plato was well schooled, well educated, pay attention in mathematics, literature, and music. His early life was marked by the death of his father and the remarriage of his mother to someone, an active participant. Stepfather was an active participant in the political milieu environment of Periclean Athens. Periclean. After choosing politics as his life's work, Plato veered from his initial goal after becoming disillusioned with the conduct of Athenian dictators during the chaotic rule of the 30 following Sparta's defeat of Athens in the Peloponnesian War. He was first put off by the brutality and dishonesty of politicians. when he saw at close range the corrupt machinations of his second cousin, forget about his name, and his uncle. However, he pursued political ambitions until the hypocritical trial and poisoning of his friend and mentor, Socrates, curtailed his enthusiasm for the political arena. Plato left Athens, visited his friends and fellow philosopher, and the man whom today we revere as the father of geometry, Euclid, on the Isthmus of forget about place. There, Plato devoted himself to the private realm of research and writing. He never married, preferring celibacy, and he had little to say about the institution of marriage. After his brief military service, he is reputed to have traveled to Egypt to study astronomy and to have settled in a place in the North Africa to study mathematics. For the remainder of his life, he gave up all interest in political life, dismissing a follower of monotheism. Plato believed that good people pay attention, attain their reward for goodness in another world. His blend of mystical and empirical wisdom denied scientists their place in the rational scheme of things. For, in his view of nature, phenomena should be contemplated, pay attention, rather than observed, measured, manipulated, and explained. His preference for thought over action was a reaction of the Athenian world, won at great cost by the doers who established the first democracy. To Plato, liberty meant, pay attention, little, poetry even less. He is said to have written dithyrambics and tragedies, but to have torn them up after his first meeting with Socrates. Plato based his idealized society on a transcendent never land, far from the realities of war, treachery, and cups of poisonous hemlock. Traveling to the court of Dionysus, Plato found his opinions to be greatly out of favor. After humiliating treatment, he was deported on a Spartan vessel and marked for sale on the slave block in Aegina, where and forget about the place rescued him by negotiating a price with the auctioneer. Undaunted in his wish to see the Mediterranean world, Plato continued on to southern Italy, where he met with the famous mathematician and follower of Pythagoras, Pisagor diye geçiyor ya, Pisagor teorisi, served as mayor. Influenced by a mathematician who believed that the principle of mathematics would one day serve society as a valuable tool, Plato returned to Athens. He taught at Gymnasium College School called Academia, on the outskirts of the city near somewhere. He founded and administered his own school called the Academy, the prototype of modern university in our time. He taught there for 38 years. Over the door to the Academy was inscribed a single requirement. Pay attention. No one shall enter who knows no geometry. Geometri bilmeyen kimse diyor içeri adım atamaz. Men and women from all parts of the Mediterranean world came there to pursue various studies, notably mathematics, logic, and astronomy. So you can just continue for the other parts of the paper. So he returns his home. Why he returned? To meditate the growing conflicts between Dionysus and Dion. And he was forced to flee Athens again. Meanwhile, as a result, accomplishment of somewhere and some people forget about. If, uh, so for the last part, let's say, okay, Plato's academy enjoyed a whiff of fresh air in the stimulating and challenging work of Exodus and Plato's pupils. Exodus devoted himself to mathematical inquiry, particularly as it applies to conic sections, and the early principles of calculus. Basit basit hesap, dört işlem yapmak, calculus. His theories of planetary movement involved an array of concentric circles with the Earth in the center, a concept later supplanted by Copernicus' theory of heliocentric universe in the Middle Ages. In addition to these principles, Exotics contemplated an ethos based on rational hedonism and a metaphysical theory of the relationship of time and space. During a final trip to Sicily, at the request of political leaders, constructed a model system of laws for use in colonial governance. He was actively engaged in refining his system when he died at the age of 80. Much to the dismay of Aristotle and the others, Plato's nephew and sister replaced him as owner and administrator of the academy until some time. One of the chief aims of Plato's writings was the vindication of Socrates, whose social criticism led to his arrest and subsequent death at the hands of Athenian reactionaries. Plato's apology, a forthright attempt to clear his friend of the charge of impiety, as the wise old philosopher speaking in his own defense. In addition, Plato penned 42 dialogues and a total of 13 letters, all of which survive in their entirety. Plato spent the most portion of his life contemplating reality. This is important. He deplored dogma and favored a sincere, arduous search for truth, a system which reflects his own inner questioning of the true and just path. His conclusions about the nature of the ideal life has influenced succeeding generations, next generations of thinkers like Aristotle, St. August, Kant, Nietzsche, and Husserl.